Byleth is a power-crept monster, so how do you deal with this unit? How do you counter them? We're going to talk about Aether raids, offense and defense, summoner duels, and even some free-to-play solutions in Arena towards the end. But I need to know in the comments, have you had dealings with this unit yet? Because I have heard some fantastic stories. Alright, first off, we need to just go over briefly the kit. You guys have seen this over and over. The rundown is Slaying, DC, tons of in-combat stats, Null Guard, Uber Scowl, depending on how far you've traveled, Null Counter Disrupt, which has only been on one armor so far. We also have damage boosting, and we have piercing, which is huge, and we've talked about on this channel how important that is to tanks. But the last thing, just to put the final nail in the coffin there, is the special damage reduction from Supreme Heaven. Summoners, this unit is nuts. Let's talk about Aether raids. Offense is probably this unit's weakest mode, but that doesn't make this unit bad there. Understand though, speed is so important on offense in order to secure doubles. This unit does have a lot of damage output though, and so right now in the meta can do well. I just worry about the longevity. Now, Astra is kind of the enemy phase season because of all the mythics that they offer you. Veil and Elamine being key in there, as well as Aether being able to stop a unit from actually attacking. You can see what we're going up against here is pretty much what we're talking about is a Cav/Flyer line. They come in kind of the same configuration, so I've left them that way. And you're seeing the two flyers here that have just been the scourge of so many offenses. Hinoka and Claude don't do a lot against this unit. Hinoka, because she can't get off Deadeye and because she can't hit twice, means that Byleth with that piercing and Null Counter Disrupt just absolutely destroy her. Claude, who really relies on both damage reduction and lethality, same thing. Now, that means that a lot of teams are going to have to rely on other stuff, and in particular, we've been so reliant on specials doing damage, and that's going to be harder to come by. Look more for true damage and piercing to gain more value. Now, the two units that you're looking at here with Sonicy is fantastic as long as you have the unit clumped in a group. It's why Flyer/Cav lines are so good here, because it is harder to get a tank out on their own. You are forcing a player to clump their units in the back while you hopefully get a choice of who gets sniped. Sonicy, if you can set her up that way, absolutely destroys Byleth, or at least puts a good dent in him. The other surprising one is Shamir, and that's because she gets so many in-combat debuffs, which Byleth can't stop. So I am a big fan, although I will say 4 HP left is probably borderline, but keep in mind this is simming against a plus 10 Byleth. Most of the time you're going to see lower than that, but I wanted to see the limits of this unit. Still, this unit is doing an absolute workman's load here. The thing you want to compare this to though is Fallen Rhea, who on her release was very good, but because she couldn't double, because she had that wary effect, it meant that a lot of times she left units around. Let's talk about that and look at an example here. What we've got is a pretty standard Cav line that you're seeing. This is actually the Cav line that I'm running right now. Don't copy this, it's not finished and it's not doing very well, but you're seeing a lot of things like this right now. You notice I'm gonna do what you're supposed to here, and I am going to get Byleth all out on their lonesome. I have been preaching about Guidance 4 on Plumeria and Peony for a while, and this is showing you how well it does. If Byleth is in a group, Byleth goes down instantly. Since Byleth is on their own, it is much easier to take care of them. Gulveg honestly hits like a wet noodle, which is kind of sad, but we'll get to that. Now, here's the thing. Versus Cav lines and Flyer lines, generally I want to take out 3 units. Because of the massive range, it lowers the likelihood that I'm going to get sniped. Here, I only took out 2. Now, I thought I was okay because I went ahead and got that Shamir, so I figured I was doing just fine, but I don't have a way to heal Byleth, and so I have rearranged everybody now, and something interesting happens. Freyr, and this is consistent, Byleth doesn't really do a good job of killing Freyr. That happens a lot. This I did not expect. And Mira comes in and finishes the job. I know this is a if I would have positioned better on this turn, it would have turned out better. But it's a lot of what you're going to be dealing with. It is very easy to make a mistake if you leave a unit out there. And you're going to be leaving a lot of units out there because you're not for certain that this unit is going to get a kill. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is Aether Raid's defense. And this is a little different. I think this is a very good mode for this unit. But the reason I don't have individual matchups is because this is so team dependent. It's not so much 1v1, which a lot of tanking has turned into right now. How many bonuses can I stack on the unit? And then I'm going to pull back and away. Let's roll this. And what we're going to see here is combined with Fallen Maria, that gives Byleth an incredible amount of bulk. That's kind of going to be a theme. You're going to see this happen a lot, and honestly, I think this is a match made in heaven. For one thing, you'll notice that Hardy Bearing is on Byleth, and this stops any kind of desperation shenanigans, which are a good way to deal with this unit. You notice Sanaki could not finish the job there. Next, Chrom comes in, and I know this is more, you're never going to pair Chrom with Sanaki. It's going to be two different teams, but I just wanted to really nail home the fact that even as a near savior, this unit is very good and something you're going to have to bring counters for. But keep in mind, most of the time when you have a setup like this, you're going to be able to sit back and tank them easier. We'll see how that plays out in the long run, but we're probably going to want to have some kind of counter for teams that have Byleth on their team. So what I'm saying there on defense is you're going to need to rely on some external sources. You're going to need Bolt Tower, or you're going to need to stack attack and use a brave weapon user. The other thing is to have two different flavors of player phase teams. You have your melee and you have your ranged. You can usually go after one or the other because normally these teams can only focus on one at a time. Keep that in mind. Let's move on to Summoner Duels, and let me make something clear. There are no tanks that tank everyone, and we don't want those in the game. So the fact that I'm showing so many counters to this unit does not mean this unit is bad. In fact, I would be very concerned about this one, and I am considering making this a permanent veto on the upcoming Summoner Duels until we get more options to take him out. But you're going to need counters on your teams. Chrom is the very obvious solution and does good in just about any mode and doesn't need Katria support. The thing is, he has a lot of physical bulk, but he also has effective damage and hits very, very hard. Thor is an interesting thing here, and what I'm showing is a Blazing Thunder proc. I'm looking less at Thor for that, although we'll show an example where she helps counter Byleth in more than one way. But AoEs are actually a pretty good way to take out Byleth. I know you do have the button you have to contend with, but that's on one turn. So keep that in mind. It also wastes an action for the other team to take that. Shez is interesting. I've got her up there, but understand that she is borderline. Which is nuts. So an effective Brave hit has trouble taking out Byleth. But really, that was a very, very close thing. But I don't have any debuffs on Byleth here, so that's another thing that you can help with your team. Even a little bit of any kind of negative status on that unit helps a ton. You can possibly put Unity on your Byleth, and that would be something to go up against and have trouble with, but that means you sacrifice Guard, and so that would give you another in with some of these units, especially if you've got a Desperation, a Triangle attack, anything with a double that's uncontested. As far as the other units, we've already talked about Claude. I didn't feel like putting him up here. Kagero, this unit takes out easily because Kagero needs lethality. Chrom is borderline. I'm going to show you a replay with him doing well, but understand that that can go either way depending on your Chrom and depending on the situation. And Sanaki, he just flat out loses to. Specifically in Summoner Duels, you are going to have units that are surrounding Byleth, and that means there are lots of debuffs and lots of chances for that damage reduction that Sanaki gets. Vale is another one, less on the border than Chrom, actually has a harder time taking this unit out, but a very good cleanup unit if you can get at least a little bit of chip damage or more debuffs on Byleth. Let's look at our example, and this is something that I ran through last night, and This is a very thrown together team. I just really wanted to get some view on how this unit played. And I mean, the answer is very well. They can also work as a melee frontliner, and they do decently well there. Most Chroms are going to be able to take this unit out though. You can see right away, thinking that Katria was going to tank that was probably a bit foolhardy, but I was able to get everyone in line there and start picking off units and doing the trading game. Once they got involved, you'll notice this Thor right here taking out Byleth's duo button is huge and lets Chrom come in and finish the job. Understand that the thing here, having your duo button linked to bonuses can often be a bad thing, and I would be looking in the future for another Thor. I don't think we've seen the last of this unit, and this might be in a Pulse Smoke 4 form, where that Pulse Smoke 4 actually takes out bonuses. So be on the lookout. I would, if I were guessing, I would say February, but understand that is me guessing and I don't have any solid backing for that. I feel like it's coming. My goal for Arena was to have free-to-play options to take this unit out, and I think I've found some pretty good ones. The first up is Shez, and I understand that this kit is just a monster, but this is in order to player phase Byleth, which is very difficult to do. Most of the time, what you're going to want is to take everyone else out, draw them out so that they move away from Byleth, and then take him out at the end where you can simply put a melee unit in front of him and enemy phase him. He's not as good in enemy phase because it's harder to proc Supreme Heaven that way. Shez. Shez is a really fun unit, and if you wanted to build a GHB right now, I think this would be a good one to try out. I know that this is an incredibly expensive kit. Do know that no quarter isn't really doing Shez any good in this particular case, but I do think he's worth it, and if you wanted to do this, I think you'd have a lot of fun. But aerial maneuvers is very expensive, and so is SD Rain. I think this is a very fun portion of their kit. Just know that aerial maneuvers is the key point, as well as Flared Sparrow. And you can see you're able to get enough damage off that you're taking Byleth out here. Valadar was really interesting, and the hard part about this is the key is that attack res tempo 4, which is on all of one unit right now. So we also don't have this unit available in the Grail pool. If you are a Valadar fan, this is what you're going to want to be aiming for, as well as some other ways to get debuffs on Byleth, so keep that in mind. Lumera is the example of what the enemy phase solution is, but you can do this with most of your score bots. They just have to have some form of null follow-up, and what they really need is physical null follow-up in order to actually get the piercing as well. You can see that what is happening here is Byleth is being set one space in front of Lumera. Actually, they're being allowed to come forward, and then Lumera ends turn. Byleth comes in, and I won't call that a ting because that is really a hard hit for one of them, but Lumeria takes care of business there. Again, any of your Omni tanks you want to use this on that you have as Arena score bots, this is the way to do it with stuff you already have that doesn't take ridiculous things like attack res tempo 4 and aerial maneuvers. Cyril, I tried so hard to get this unit. I know how much you guys love this unit. I have seen this unit in Arena quite a bit, and he does a great job, just not on Byleth. I looked at the other duos here, and surprisingly, Legyarn does the job as well as Kraben. Sanaki, we've talked about them, but poor Duo Korin just does not get there. And then Asker is a stalemate, so that's what we have going for us here. This kind of downplays how good this unit is in Arena, and I think this is going to be the most frustrating of the modes to deal with them in. You're going to have to come with a plan because I think we're going to see a lot of +10s from all of our Leviathan friends. All right, summary. If you are looking in Summoner Duels, hands down the best counter is Legendary Chrom. Up next is Thor, and really that's Thor with AoE, but I also think Legendary Shez does an excellent job. On AR, Sanaki is phenomenal with Shamir following close behind. AoE is good as well, and can be very handy right now because of if you have a unit paired with, say, Sanaki, you have a situation where the unit has to either be solo on their own, in which AoEs do well and Sanaki doesn't, or they're in a bunch, which AoEs, normally you can set your savior away and the AoEs don't do as well, but Sanaki loves. You can see how that plays out where you have kind of a yin and yang there to help counter this unit on offense. On defense, we talked about how you have to have different player phase options in order to really take this unit out. Keep that in mind. A lot of the things that we've been doing with hit and run suffer here. So we have some work to do on that. Hit and run has been on the rise, and I think this unit is going to be everywhere on Aether Raid's defense. So the hit and run community is going to have to come up with some better solutions. The last is Arena, and we talked about Valadar being a very good solution, as well as Shez, and then your Omni tanks like Lumera. Summoners, I hope this helps. Understand that villains always get counters, and that counter will probably be coming soon because IS loves to print money. In the meantime, though, I hope this gets you through some of these modes and the villain that is Byleth will be slain. Thank you so much to the members. You guys are absolutely amazing. Take care and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.